All right. Well, hello and welcome again. We are thrilled to have you all join us today. This webinar is for Sun members. And just as a reminder, Sun is having a conference early next year in Atlanta. It's March 2nd through the 4th. And I do hope we get to see you all in person next year. Registration for the conference is open. And early bird discounts are ending in just a couple of weeks. So you may want to go ahead and take advantage of that if you haven't already registered. Some additional housekeeping. This should be about 45 minutes or so. Please feel free to either put a question in the Q&A. You can certainly take yourself off of mute if you'd like to at any time during the conversation. We certainly appreciate any questions that come up. We want to make sure we address those. All right, we're gonna get started first with a poll, and it's really just to get to know you. We're looking to know sort of where you work. Are you in IT working on the ERP? Are you maybe over on the business side or in operations? Do you work on the logistics? Are you a finance or sitting in accounts payable, accounts receivable, something else? And if it is something else, if you want to share what that is in chat, would certainly appreciate that. I'm going to give just another couple of seconds for folks to answer. Great. So we have most of you, the majority of y'all are working either in IT or on the ERP itself. We do have about 20% of folks who are over on the operations or business side, and then even smaller number either in something else or are in accounting and finance. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about who else is here today. So my name is Sarah Butler. I am the Director of Professional Services at the UniLink Group. Joining me is Ethan Price. He is one of our senior developers at the company with a focus on SyteLine and CSI. And also we have the pleasure of having Cassie Noles, our good partner at JDN, joining us. So thank you to my coworkers for doing that. Here's who we are. UniLink has been around for a while. We started in distribution, but we have been working with manufacturers for many years, and have been partnered with Infor for getting close to 20 at this point. We focus only on EDI services. It's what's in our DNA. And Cassie from JDN has also been working in EDI for, I'm not going to say how many years, Cassie, but you've been doing it for a while now, and also with SyteLine just as long as that. I'm going to let you introduce JDN a little bit and talk a little bit about your expertise as well.
Of course. So just to set, to relate to the large percentage of the people that were in the IT department, I also was in the IT department when I started the EDI journey. And that was given to me in one of the original implementations. So let's do EDI. So my journey began as a customer. I transitioned to an employee of the company that created SyteLine, and then transitioned out of that into being a part of the Infor Partner Network. And so we've been part of the partner network for, golly, Bill, 15 plus years. It's hard for me to remember. But we major in SyteLine, and a lot of what we do is EDI. A whole lot of what we do is EDI. So it's good to see everybody here. I scrolled through and saw some names, so it's good to see you.
So we're going to cover a little bit of EDI basics, uh, how it works, sort of how to select what works best for your company, and then also best practices, as well as some use cases that we have seen. And I actually think this is great for us to do just our second poll, and that is what um, how do you describe your business's use of EDI? Are you doing it at all? Are you just getting started, maybe? Maybe you have things that are partially automated, but there's more out there that you're interested in doing. Maybe you just took some low-hanging fruit or people who are demanding it. And maybe you have it fully automated. You're really pleased with your program, but you want to make sure, there's maybe more out there to learn. And I'm going to give it just another 10 seconds or so. All right, great. So we have half the people here are saying they're partially automated. They're certainly well into their way of EDI, and maybe there's more still to do or learn. We do have about almost 40% of folks who are either not doing EDI or just getting started. And then an even smaller percent who say, you know what, we're fully automated and really well integrated within the ERP. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, let's talk about some of those benefits that some of y'all can now see on why EDI is helpful for manufacturers. Cassie, what are two benefits that you see? Oh, and you're on mute.
Yeah, one of the biggest benefits is just the sheer speed, the ability to optimize how quickly the data can get into your system. Just recently, we helped a company who gets 2 to 4,000 orders a day. And so that's almost impossible to do manually. And then it's very important to make sure that everything is correct too. So I would say one of the biggest benefits is the speed with which you can get the data into the system, get it verified, become a customer order so you can begin your process of manufacturing, procurement, shipping, whatever is your next step for your business process. The other piece, Sarah, um, is the quality of the data that comes in. EDI, because we are surrounded by uh, SQL, APIs, programming, the data is or the data is not correct. And so EDI helps with that up front in SyteLine. And so the quality of the data, the accuracy of the data is super important. It's a major benefit to use an EDI.
Yeah. Ethan, are there other benefits that you would add to that?
I think she hit the nail on the head there with the data integrity. That's normally the biggest one that I call out. Just knowing that your data is correct and accurate as it's coming in and out of your SyteLine system is one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that some folks it's defensive. They have a customer. Usually, it's a customer that says, "Hey, we want to communicate with you via EDI, and if you want to keep our business, you got to do it." Some organizations are a little more proactive, and they know maybe it's a key component to growing. We work with a rather large manufacturer with multiple divisions that took that stance. They elected to at the corporate level say, hey, we're choosing this EDI provider and we see it as a way to grow. And so they're starting to implement EDI across all of their business units. Uh, let's also just briefly talk about when you might want to implement EDI. You know, it sounds a little self-serving, but you know, there are a lot of people think, and I agree, the time is now. You know, I'm not in sales. I'm not the salesperson, so I do see it making it easier for businesses to do business with your customers. You know, you're getting faster feedback on what's happening. And maybe it's that. Maybe it's a personnel limitation. You know, you had a person who was in charge of it and doing it internally, but they've retired or they've left the company, and you don't want to go through the process of retraining that person. Maybe you're migrating from another ERP system, or you're upgrading into SyteLine 10. You know, if you're migrating to a new ERP and you already have it running, you need it running when you go live. But if you're not doing it now, it's often a great idea to get your ERP migration done and then do the EDI after that, so that you're managing sort of one new piece at the same time. If you're not already doing EDI, you're reducing that stress level as opposed to bringing two systems up at the same time. But let's talk a little bit about EDI basics. Oh, Ethan, can you talk a little bit? You know, we call them the core four. Can you talk about what those are?
Yeah, sure. I can definitely do that. So the core four documents, as they're kind of laid out there, it's going to be the invoice or the 810, the purchase order, or known as the 850 in the SyteLine world. I think that's actually called the sales order. The 855 is going to be the PO or sales order acknowledgement, and the 856 is that advanced ship notice. And so all of those are get started driven with that purchase order or the sales order in SyteLine, where it's just a document that's, you know, from your customer or that you're sending out to your vendor. It just says we're buying item XYZ, ABC. We're going to buy 20 of these and 40 of that one at this price. At that point, you'd get back the PO acknowledgement or send back the PO acknowledgement. It's just saying, you know, yes, we're going to accept ABC at 40, but XYZ, we can only actually sell you 20. And then we can sell the other 20 at another date, just giving information about how they're actually going to acknowledge and process that order in their system. Then after that, you'll get back the 810 invoice. You know, that's kind of the bill, or you'll send out the 810 invoice, your bill. This is how much this is actually going to cost, how it should be paid, and that kind of information. And then the advanced ship notice is kind of what it sounds like. It's how the order is actually going to be shipped. Is it coming via FedEx, UPS? Is it on a pallet? Is it broken up into cartons? What's the ship date on it? That kind of information as well. And then one thing to kind of call out, because there's a similar naming convention here between the functional acknowledgement 997 and the PO acknowledgement 855. The PO acknowledgement 855 only acknowledges the purchase order. That's what it's there for. It acknowledges specific information about pricing and change codes and how those two documents interact. The functional acknowledgement 997 is essentially just a read receipt on any EDI transaction. It's just one system communicating to the other, yes, I got whatever EDI document you just sent me, so we should be good to go there. And then, of course, this isn't all of the EDI documents. There's 100 other forms or more, at least, ACH and inventory spreadsheets, price catalogs, all kinds of good stuff like that. Oh, and then documents flow. I think, Sarah, that might be more on the next slide, but if you wanted to talk
It sure is.
Yep.
Yeah,
And so
I was like,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was going to say, just high level. How does it work? And then maybe Cassie can jump in as well.
Yeah, sure. So kind of like I was hinting at before, there's two different ways it can kind of work, whether you are the vendor or the customer in the EDI transaction. In this case, if you are the customer in the EDI transaction, you're going to be sending out that purchase order out to your vendor, and your vendor is going to respond with the corresponding three documents, that PO acknowledgement, the 856 ASN, and the invoice 810 inbound. Whereas in the other way, your customers could send you a PO invoice or a PO inbound to you, and then you would send back that 855 acknowledging, all the different statuses of the items, the 856 letting them know how it's shipped, and the 810 billing them for it at the end there.
Kathy, is there anything else you'd add on either basics around EDI or how it flows?
Yeah, just at a very high level, we control the flow of that data. inside SyteLine using, if we're in version 9 or above, using file servers, file server logical folders, demand EDI parameters. You'll get familiar with such forms as file maintenance. We decide with UniLink's input, or I guess really UniLink tells us is, here's where we're going to put the data, and then we get the data and we put the data again. So it's those decisions are made up front, and it's a simple setup. And most of the time, once that decision is in place, we don't go back and change anything for the most part.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to pause and just say, are there any questions about some of these basics? There were certainly a lot of y'all who are new to EDI or just getting started. So I'm just going to pause for a moment. All right. I don't see anything in chat or in Q&A, so we're going to keep running. Let's get started with our first use case, which is automating orders to cash. Really, what does that mean? We have already talked about the core four: orders, order acknowledgements, advanced ship notices, and invoices. And having orders coming in, as Cassie was talking about, orders coming in quickly and with data integrity is so important. Some of the challenges around that are having to do it. A lot of folks are having to do that manually, whether you're going to a portal to get the information, like Amazon's Vendor Central portal, where you have to take it, download it, then manually enter it, or you're getting an email saying, "Hey, this I want to here's my new order. Please process." Ethan, can you talk a little bit about the automation of it and what that actually means? Like how are we automating from someone doing a portal to getting it into SyteLine?
Yeah, so instead of having to log into a portal or, like you said, monitor your email box to see when those orders come in, and also sort of kind of getting into what Cassie mentioned, once we set up that data flow between UniLink and your SyteLine system, that connection runs, you can set a timer on 5, 15 minutes, whatever it might be, and it's just going to run that connection to check for orders however often you set that timer, so that you never actually have to manually interact and actually import those orders into your system. It'll all flow. Well, I think you actually have to monitor at first just to make sure everything looks good on that import. But yeah, it's just one button to import, 15 to 20 orders, however many came in that 15-minute window, rather than having to manually import all 15 to 20 of them one at a time.
Yeah, Cassie, anything you would add on that?
No, we just make sure when we're going into, the process, working with Ethan or whoever happens to be assigned, is to make sure that we understand the business processes inside SyteLine, so that doing EDI complements and blends seamlessly with that. So Ethan made a really good point about the automation. We certainly can automate many of the steps, but because this is a touch point in integration, we want to make sure that everyone participating from the SyteLine perspective understands all the areas that things are happening, and they know where to go if we have an issue. We just want to be able to give them the ability to diagnose anything right or wrong. So while we certainly can automate at first, Ethan, again, good point, we don't automate because we want you to understand what's going on. So.
Yeah, certainly not at first. You want to make sure that everything is looking the way you want it to, and having that touch point is absolutely important. Thank you. Let's keep going into that, because we started talking about, we've talked about basics of what is EDI, or what are some of those important documents that you might hear, how does it flow at a high level, but let's talk a little bit more about how it works with UniLink. And I'm going to ask Ethan again to talk about how it works when someone works with us.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, once you have your ERP, whether that be CSI or SyteLine, either one, actually connected with the UniLink data center, it kind of becomes it's just a one-to-one connection, but due to the routing that we have in our system and all of our technology, it actually is a one-to-many. So you only have to send data out to one endpoint, and we can route that out to, 12 different trading partners, 20 different trading partners, whoever it might be, and be able to specify rules to say, this trading partner actually wants PDFs and this trading partner wants actual EDI documents. Maybe this one wants spreadsheets, and maybe they want them sent different ways. Somebody wants an email, somebody wants it uploaded via FTP, and we can support all of that without the customer actually having to do anything on their side. We handle all of those connections. So it's just your SyteLine system to our data center, and then our data center out to however many trading partners you might have.
Mm-hmm. And one of those pieces that, and I might be jumping ahead of myself, but part of that is we work together with you or with a partner like Cassie. If you don't necessarily have the ERP experience for yourself, you can work with Cassie. Can you talk a little bit how we work together through that beginning part?
Oh, sure. And this is the perfect slide to discuss it, because we have it sounds kind of weirdo to say it, but I consider myself bilingual from the perspective of I speak SyteLine and I speak EDI. So when we're talking about this slide and we have many customers involved, we have many transactions involved, we have many EDI specifications that could be involved, is we don't want to overwhelm you, the SyteLine user, with what's going on behind the scenes, but we do want you to be very informed. We want you to understand the movement of the data. We want you to understand the importance of the data. And I can't mention enough on it's important for us to understand your business processes, because there are a bazillion people that use the SyteLine product in a number of different versions. Still have someone on 7. I have a lot of people on 8, have a lot of people on 9, many people on 10, a lot of people in the cloud, a lot of people on premise. But of all of those people, and I noticed that I saw Ashley on here and I saw Amy on here, I saw Matt that had joined, is that you guys are all involved in different types of manufacturing or business processes. You're buying and selling. And so it's important for us to understand and have a clear goal of what you're trying to achieve. And this, again, Sarah, is the perfect slide for this, because there's many things going on, but working with you and working with the UniLink team and Ethan, we can achieve those goals, if that makes sense. We can take the complex and we can make it simple. We can help you with your documentation. The reason we want to go slow is we want to make sure everyone has the training and understanding that it is that they need. You can't ask too many questions at all, because the answers are what you needed, right? So if we don't have the answer, then Ethan, we go find someone who's got the answer. That's just how that one goes. But I really do like this slide. I want you to give it to me, Sarah. I like it a lot.
We can share, Cassie. I think that's all right. Let's talk a little bit more about how someone, let's say, hey, you've decided you're interested in doing EDI. Where do we start? And Cassie, do you want to sort of keep going with that?
Sure.
What is it that we need?
Yeah, and you guys have an excellent Excel spreadsheet that's a gentle interrogation to that. It's like, who's the partner? Who's the contact? Is it possible at that point in the initial conversations, do we know what the documents are that are going to be exchanged? It's important to know, are we talking about someone who's got the thousands of orders, or is it just a couple of orders, but maybe those orders are worth $1 million? So how we're going to prioritize who we want to do first, what's the biggest, maybe the best impact for the business. Time frame is it is great. It can be brutal, right? Sometimes we're forced to test through other solutions, and which puts us at their whims. And so, Ethan, I won't say those initials out loud, but we know who I'm talking about. So the timeline and setting the expectation, Sarah, is crucial here. Being very transparent. If we hit a bump in the road, if we missed at some point in our Q&A and we run into something, we're not going to try and spin our wheels in the background fixing something so you can't see that, that we missed a question or an answer. We just have to come to you as part of the team, as part of the SyteLine team. It's your business. It's the money that we're going to help you get sooner because we're integrating EDI. So it's paramount that we keep the lines of communication open as we answer all of these questions here. When you get down to the bottom, scalability, I think that's one of the things, Sarah, that's super cool about this is being able to lay an EDI foundation and then allowing the customer to start turning their bottom line quicker and quicker, right? You may need more help from Ethan or UniLink and myself or my team at first, but the further down the road you get and the more successes that we have, the quicker it can be to onboard more customers, to the point where it can be pretty darn quick, based on if we're having a test through another third party. We may get into areas where we need to think about a customization, but that's something that we'll talk through thoroughly to make sure that what we're doing is best for your business. What we're doing is not affected by the uplifts like that happened this past weekend. So there's a lot of thought and pondering that goes into this. So we begin with all of these questions, right, Sarah? We document these, and again, that time frame is crucial. Resources like who are Ethan and I, perhaps, or whether it's Valley or Cameron or whoever it might be. Who are we working with from the SyteLine perspective that understands your ordering process? So these are a great set of questions.
Yeah. It also brings to mind for me that time frame and resources needed. It's really important, particularly if you're selecting an outsourced EDI services, which UniLink is. There is still some work that's required, right? Whether that's working together with you and us to answer questions about your business, whether that's doing the testing and reviewing the information, saying yes, that works. That part of it is certainly to me important. It also reminds me of talking about the business processes and even potential needs for customization. It reminds me of a client where we went through the list. We talked with them about their business processes, but it turns out once we went live, the right people weren't in the room to tell us, oh, no, when we get orders from these 3 states, it actually handles a different way entirely. It doesn't go through this process that we've been telling you about. It actually has a whole nother different process that wasn't originally in the scope and in the questionnaire. So when you're thinking about an EDI implementation, you really want to make sure, particularly for those of y'all who are on the ERP or in the IT side, you're really making sure that you're engaging all of the right business partners to come into the conversation and make sure that we're uncovering all of the business use cases, so that there are not any surprises once you take something live.
Yep, that's a perfect follow-up. I think focusing on those use cases, whatever those scenarios are, and whether those scenarios are, is it an international shipment? Does it involve drop ship? Is it one of those, stand on your left leg and wave your right arm in the air kind of thing that someone forgot to tell us about? Those are critical. because, we could have a conversation after this meeting and I could show you in, 30, 40 minutes how to get an order in the system. Doesn't mean it meets your business requirements, right? So we want to do it properly. So I think those testing scenarios are critical.
Absolutely. Well, let's keep talking about what makes we talked about some risks. Let's talk about what a successful implementation looks like. This slide does show sort of the high level pieces, but Ethan, can you talk about maybe an example or two that you're thinking of something that went really well?
Yeah, actually, there was one fairly recently where we had a client that was every day they had a portal that they had to upload their inventory list and their pricing lists. And they thought they were going to have to do that once they actually moved on to the UniLink team. But during the testing process and the mapping process, just discussing with their customers and the options that we have via EDI, they were actually able to learn that they had the ability to upload those same spreadsheets that they were using for the portal on a daily basis. They could send those to us instead and actually integrate that via EDI with their customers. So instead of having to manually upload that to a portal every day, taking 20 to 30 minutes, they just have to queue up that one document, send to us, and it all goes out. So it lowered their thing from being 20 to maybe 40 minutes a day to just a 5-minute button press, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. Cassie, I also want to talk about, just keep going a little bit more through that testing process. Can you talk about what happens during the testing process?
Oh, absolutely. So many times the customer will either send us directly a set of test documents, or if we're using a third party, then we get those test documents. Sometimes the test document is to figure out, well, what happens if a bad part number is submitted? What happens if there's a bad price? Maybe a customer has a specific way that they need things to be shipped, and so they're sending us data that is specific to those scenarios. And that's one of the things that the having the right people, quote unquote, in the room to make sure that we are testing the right scenarios is critical, because it would be inevitable that if we missed one, then that would be the very first order that happens when we go live, right? That would just be Murphy's Law to come into play instantly. So, that testing process, so we run the EDI transaction load routine. Orders are in EDI customer orders where they're sequestered from anything else inside of SyteLine. You can't ship it. You can't run a report on it. It's there by itself. We review that with customer service or whoever is responsible for those daily orders. And it could be multiple people. It could be one. It could be someone that I'm working with recently who's also in accounting. And so we share her across many functions. But regardless, we make sure that when that comes in, that they understand how EDI customer orders work. They understand the process of going from an EDI customer order to a customer order, whether we're posting or we're auto posting. Then we continue the review process once that customer order is created in SyteLine, and make sure, is this order adhering to your business process? And at any point of these conversations, we may have a whoa and back up and let's talk about this. It's not a bad thing, Ethan, when we're going through this back and forth. It's like, hey, we reviewed this order. We would like to have this as a note. Well, then we communicate that back to the team, process this through again, and see this thing come in as a note. It's like, oh, wait a minute. This was not the part number that needs to be mapped. That's okay. It's just a communication thing. We come back through, we load it again until we get it right. The good thing that we like to think is that we can minimize the amount of the do-overs because of the experience that we bring to the table, Sarah. But that certainly doesn't mean that there's not something unique. Like, there's a ton of people, Ethan, I'm working with one of your teammates now. It's like, okay, so this is a drop ship order. It doesn't tell us it's a drop ship order. There's nothing in there that describes it as I am a drop ship order, but you know what it is, and we have to treat it as such. And I think that's what's great about the relationship between UniLink and JDN and SyteLine is is the codependence and the sharing of information and the learning as we go through the process. So we try not to ask the same questions too many times, but that at the end of the day, we get it right. And Sarah, did I yammer too much? Did I answer the question?
I think you answered the question great. Now we do actually have a question from someone in the Q&A. I think this goes back when we were talking about that solution in action, and Ethan, you're talking about how we can integrate. We're sort of one to many, and it's can we send documents to SPS Commerce, which is another provider for many folks.
Oh yeah, so
Yes.
if we're asking if UniLink has the ability to process documents to and from SPS on your on the user's behalf, absolutely. Something we do all day, every day, many times a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. Let's talk a little bit. Cassie, you were just talking about it. The dropship and fulfillment, or really just shipping and fulfillment. And this is a big concern for folks because there are financial implications on making sure that what you're sending on an advanced ship notice is correct. Otherwise, you can get penalized if you have faulty information.
Absolutely.
Can you talk just a little bit about how that coordination works on making sure that the information that's either in SyteLine or maybe in a third party tool flows and works into what gets sent via EDI to that customer?
So one of the points that you made early on, Sarah, was that UniLink is agnostic. They work with a whole lot of different ERP systems. And in the training cycle, UniLink does not care if you are shipping. They don't care if you're doing order shipping, if you're using pick, pack, ship. They don't care if you're using PayShip. They don't care if you're using SureShip or what other many other things are out there. But what does matter is the data, right? So one of the questions that I would always ask is, how do you ship, right? A lot of people are using pick, pack, ship process more and more because it is getting more and more better, which is frankly why they use it more. But it's critical to understand what your customer requires physically when your products are boxed or palleted, what they require as far as labels, what those labels need on them, and where that information comes from in SyteLine. So I think I've had a couple of people, think I'm being like a bit nosy, Sarah, when asking questions, because to them, they seem like it is a separate process, nothing to do with EDI, but it is so integrated. Everything that's on that shipment master is something that is almost important to Ethan and his team when it comes to mapping. How much did it weigh? How many packages did I have? Am I required to have a UCC 128 barcode on this? Which is becoming more and more prevalent. We're asking questions, Sarah, is like, are you using Bartender to create your labels? And again, people would think, well, that's not EDI. Well, specifically, it's not, but it has to pull to create, a comprehensive label. So when we get to the shipping piece, we will spend a lot of time, and many times, Sarah, and I think your team feels the same way about it. I'm almost, when I'm asking the initial questions, I'm thinking about this piece. I'm thinking about the end in mind, because I can get the order in. That's the easiest part. But can I create a compliant ASN, a compliant invoice? What kind of information is going to be required to send back to the customer so that they will pay me quickly, like I said they would, right? Because part of this is to become more efficient, not to stretch out and complete complex conversations over emails. So it is crucial to understand how you package, how you ship, how you label. We'll we'll determine uh, language, right? I say drop ship, maybe you say direct ship. We'll make sure that we're on the same page, right? On when
Mhm.
I look at something and interpret, or Ethan does and interprets, and then we're talking about how you do that inside of SyteLine. You know, is it going to someone's front door? Is it going to a warehouse and then it has to move to another truck? We need to understand that so we have the right data in the right places. And then the last number 3 there where it says errors, it is, we can't really test it too much. And I don't know how you feel about that, Ethan. You know, we can get one in and out and maybe it was okay, but we go back to those scenarios, right? And so, you know, let's be more detailed. You know, let's have multiple lines, let's have multiple containers. Let's test this and make sure it really, really works right. But anyway, that's how your physical shipment relates to EDI. And once we have that data in SyteLine, did we give UniLink everything it needs? Right, which is just, we go back into the testing. So we'll spend a lot of time here making sure that the data out of SyteLine is robust enough to do what needs to be done. Anyway, shipping, you know, the ASNs maybe aren't my favorite one, but they're one of the most important ones. You know, many customers pay off the ASN and not an invoice, and many customers won't pay your invoice if they didn't get your ASN. So we have to force this to be our happy place.
Yeah, and I think you know, we've talked a lot about like some of the work that can go, that really goes into EDI.
Right.
There are some folks who choose, and you know, it's certainly something that's possible, who choose to say, hey, I'm just going to do light testing. I'm not going to do every single possible scenario, and I'm willing to accept the risk and figure it out as we go on. Because either I know this only happens once every year, and when it comes up, then we'll address it. But I'm in a time crunch, and so I need to just get the minimum viable piece through. And that's certainly that is certainly possible and absolutely doable. I mean, it certainly makes the beginning process easier to get live. But what we want to make sure gets acknowledged is, hey, this will come up later and we will need to address it to make sure that when it comes up, we remember that we had this conversation. Let's talk a little bit about some complicated stuff. We've done a lot of I'm gonna call it interesting and sometimes complicated data analysis. Ethan, I'm going to ask you each for one example. Ethan, can you give me one example of something that we've done, either you've done or you've seen the team do?
Yeah, sure. So one of my favorites recently that we got to do, so we had a new client come in and they actually weren't able to send out ASNs to their end customer because they weren't actually the ones that were shipping the orders out. They actually utilized a third-party warehouse provider that they also traded EDI documents with. It was outside of the core 4. But because they couldn't send out those ASNs to their customers, they weren't actually going to be able to integrate EDI with those customers. The ASN was a hard requirement for that. And so we were actually able to work with Cassie, the client, and their third-party warehouse to take those couple of EDI transactions between the client and that third-party warehouse to create the ASN and our side so that their customer actually could still benefit and get all of that information and actually still be EDI compliant without having to, you know, jump through a lot of extra hoops of getting a very strange and probably overly customized routine built in place that they could actually export the ASN properly.
Great. Cassie, one example?
You know, I think probably you know, I think the 846, the 832, I think it's quite creative to just take an Excel spreadsheet and run it through the map and become compliant. It did eliminate the requirement for modification on the SyteLine side, and if that's long term, they still want to keep the manual process of pulling the data, then it would continue to replace that. If they wanted to do that, then you know, there could be something created on the fly. I think the ability to work with UniLink and is like, let's just use remit to, right? So, and I know that you've got in some of the smart maps, the remit to is something that's hard and fast. And instead of modifying the invoice to pull out the remit to address, we would ask the customer, Ethan, what's the remit to address? And you put it as part of their map, right? And then we eliminated the need for a modification on the SyteLine side. And in that time frame, that was acceptable, right? So there's that's one of the first things that come to mind. The flexibility of your smart maps to Ethan to accommodate the scenario that I'm working with now is like the EDI doesn't describe itself as dropship, but it is a dropship based on these other indicators in the data, right? So you guys are able to take that map, make it smart enough to know to give us the data so that we can treat it as that direct ship dropship should be, so it doesn't fail. So I like those abilities to come back and work together and talking with the customer and what's the best way to solve this, and there could be a two-step. The quickest way to solve this is doing this, and we're going to do this short term, and then we're going to go back and resolve it in a different way. But you guys, smart maps are super smart. I do like them.
Well, let's do one more poll for the group. I am really curious around the biggest challenges that you're seeing. Is it onboarding somebody new? Is it doing mapping and testing, error handling, and troubleshooting those, compliance with what your retailer or maybe a trading partner has? Or is it something internal? You just don't have the right resources to handle it. I'm going to give it 10 seconds and then we'll close the poll. Great. Well, it looks like we still have a couple answers coming in, but it looks like it's a really actually spread pretty evenly across this. About a quarter of y'all said onboarding new trading partners is challenging. A little bit more said mapping and testing. And then an even split between compliance with requirements from a trading partner or internal resource constraint. So it's a pretty good spread across those. I do want to talk. We're getting close to the end of time, so I just want to talk really briefly about our customer portal. Cassie, I know you've seen our clients utilize the portal frequently. Can you share maybe 2 features that you really like about it?
I like the fact that it's easy to use, Sarah. So I would say that the portal is defined kind of like it's elementary usage, right? You don't have to know a lot about EDI to use the portal. However, at the same time, if you go and you filter on a PO or you find your ASN or you find your invoice, you can find the detail if that's what you need, right? You can find your human readable. You can resend to SyteLine if that's what you need. So I like its usage or the way you use it because it's simple, but the detail is there if you need it.
Yeah. Ethan, is there anything else you would add? Maybe one.
Yeah, actually for inbound purchase orders is a big one that I see a lot of customers use because our portal will show, like Cassie said, the SyteLine data that you actually received to your system, but it'll also show the input data that your trading partners sent up front. So if there's any kind of discrepancy in the data, or even just you see something in the input data that actually would make your SyteLine data a little more rich and feature compliant or whatever, it kind of helps out in that way because you're able to see all of the options that you have to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about PDFs. and PDF automation. It's a newer capability, and it allows your trading partner to send you a PDF by email, and we're able to convert that into an EDI document that will import directly into SyteLine. Ethan, can you add where you've seen some of folks use that?
Yeah, I think the most popular places we've seen it be used so far are for our customers' trading partners that maybe aren't super robust and have a lot of EDI capability. Maybe it's a small mom and pop shop somewhere and they're comfortable emailing PDFs, but they don't really want to spend the time, money, or resources to actually get a full integrated EDI solution set up. So they can still continue to use just their simple PDF solution, but if they send it through our tool and we can convert it into an EDI document, then you still have the full benefit of full EDI automation because we'll be sending back the same documents as a PDF that they would want to receive. So nothing would change on your end trading partner side, but you would receive all of the benefits of automating with EDI in that sense.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up, and I just want to sort of share, UniLink, I one of the reasons folks like to work with UniLink, and I like working here, is you get to work directly with a developer. So someone from my team, like Ethan, they're going to be working with you directly. You're not going through lots of layers of customer service. And we believe on working with partners just like Cassie to find that solution that works for you all, not having to fit your customized solutions into exacting standards, but creating those together to help you achieve success. We're working very closely to help handle that onboarding. We are taking some of that work off of your plate. Cassie, I don't know if there's anything else you would want to add before we go look at questions.
I think customer service is paramount. Is if I have a question, then I want to be able to get the answer. I don't want to hear elevator music. I don't want to get somebody to say, I'll be back with you in the next year. I need somebody now, because it's important to me. And I like the level of customer service that UniLink offers. So that's great.
Great. Well, we're starting to get some questions coming in, and the first is, how long does it take to get set up? And Ethan, I'm gonna let you start, and then Cassie, I'm gonna let you also answer too.
Yeah, so I think on our side, we estimate, I think 2 to 6 weeks per document per trading partner. And normally that gets a little bit easier as you get further into the process, as Cassie mentioned previously. Once you get your first 2, maybe 3 trading partners out of the way and those document types, it kind of goes a bit quicker. But yeah, those first couple of ones, though, they kind of take a little bit of extra time. I might even bump that one up to maybe, say, 6 to 8 weeks, possibly sometimes.
Yeah, and from the SyteLine perspective is once we get the requirements from your partner, is we want to just check and see if there's any gaps between what your partner wants and your business processes in place. If there's anything that indicates that you need any enhancements, then we talk about those in detail and make sure that we understand what the requirement is so we can put those modifications in place. And then obviously it's imperative that that UniLink is notified if we're making any changes to the file layout so maps can be adjusted accordingly. So it impacts. And so from that perspective, if we were to need a modification today, then most of the time my team would have that in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yep. I do agree. It is based really on your scope. If you're doing just one, it's while that takes, a little bit of time to ask those beginning questions, that can be much shorter. But if you're doing many, we've got customers who have, hundreds of trading partners. It's a different sort of timeline. I do have another question that's come in is, how does the process work with UniLink and JDN? Of course, we are separate companies. But we really loved working together. So, Cassie, can you talk about what it's like working with the two of us? You know, is there one person that they go to, or how does that process work?
Of course, most of the time I am the initial contact would be involved in the kickoff. It is quite possible that primary ownership of the project could be handed off to, Valley or Jerry or Bruce or whoever it ends up being handed off to. But I would always be around for backup. And so we support you from the SyteLine perspective, and then we also support UniLink from the perspective, not that they don't understand the X12 way better than I could ever dream about, but that I can talk to them in terms of what they need to know. And so they don't have to guess on what changes we might be asking. So I help from the SyteLine perspective, and then I also help UniLink from the mapping perspective, just so they understand what the requirements are. Did that answer questions? Was that complete?
Yeah, I think so. If you have a
Okay.
follow-up, Eric, you're welcome to certainly unmute or put more questions into chat. I think the other part of that is, you know, UniLink loves working with JDN. We also work with other partners. Cassie loves to work with UniLink, but she also works with other EDI service partners. So it is possible to engage one and not the other. Not that we would suggest that, because we have a very well-oiled machine.
Indeed.
But it is certainly possible. Another question is, how do I determine which partners to prioritize if we are just starting EDI? Cassie?
That one to me would be, is there a pain point that we can get rid of by starting with Granger? I'll just use him. If there's a pain point that we could remove, maybe we start with him. Is it that MSC sends you hundreds of orders and you're simply running out of time and you can't get them in the system fast enough? So if it's a quantity based of orders, then we might target them first, right? Because then that helps you relieve that pain point. If it's a customer who's just plain mouthy, then for no other reason, maybe that's the one we have to start with, because that's the one that has, the president's ear. So really, I think a quick conversation during the kickoff meeting would help us find out of your partners which would be the best to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are basically out of time. We went long, which is great because we had a lot of good discussion. I really appreciate everyone's time, you sticking around. If you have other questions, my email's there on your screen. Cassie's email is there on the screen. I would love to continue the conversation. If there's other pieces we could help answer about how EDI can help you in your business. And thank you very much for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.